Unchangeable archaeological and historical truth is that Black Americans are the foundation. They were here first.
But you're more American than anyone.
From the very beginning, Black Americans have been a vital part of the American story, helping to make this the greatest nation in the history of the world.
The true owners of the soil. The people that Columbus met were Black Americans.
As white people, it is our responsibility to use our privilege to support and uplift the Black community.
White people need to show up for Black people the way they show up to be entertained by Black culture.
Why are Black people more impoverished than white people? Because of white supremacy. So thank you for pointing out that people that have been forced into poverty through systemic racism of the last 200 years are forced to abort their baby more because of the lack of resources to be able to raise a baby. And then you, as a white lady, use that as your talking point to take the health care away from those same women that are suffering in those same impoverished neighborhoods because you don't want to acknowledge the white supremacy behind it all. Go ahead.
White kid defends MLK.
Dr. King was good, okay? He wasn't just for Black people. He made the Poor People's Campaign because he wanted the poor to have houses and jobs, even white poor people.
Enough. Start this today, bud. Turkey, all right?
Brothers and sisters, honestly, watching these white Americans supporting Black Americans' lineage, understanding the pain that Black Americans pass through due to racism, understanding the real history of Black Americans, especially the real origin of Black Americans. This makes me very happy for real. And these are rare footage that you never see on internet. I want us to react on them. And as we are reacting, I want you to drop your opinions down there in the comment section. Now, before we get into it, remember to like the video and subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. Let's get into it.
Black Americans are the only indigenous people on this land. Melanated people are the only people around the world who are indigenous on every land, no matter their ethnic group. Uncivilized lands all have the same genetic connection, melanated skin with varying shades of brown. And those groups are not connected to Africa, just like Black Americans aren't connected to Africans ethnically. The actual American Indian, known as the Black Americans, are the ethnic group of North America, not descendants of Africans. Let's dismantle the greatest public relations fraud ever committed, the desperate multiracial campaign to erase the true indigenous Black American from this land. There is a coordinated effort, a relentless lie, designed to make Black Americans believe they are a guest in someone else's house. But the unchangeable archaeological and historical truth is that Black Americans are the foundation. They were here first. And by here, I mean the world. Every country, every strip of land. And they built the civilization that we are all destroying. The lie about Africa is to confuse and mislead so that the theft can keep going on. Black Americans weren't even considered African American until 1988 by Jesse Jackson, a known Cherokee Indian. So they'll pay a Black American leader to lie and sell out while classifying himself correctly despite the lie. If Black Americans came from Africa by boat in the 1600s, America didn't figure this out until 1988? And this isn't just a white lie. This is a lie woven by $5 pretendians, by secret treaties between immigrant groups, by decades of policy and propaganda all aimed at one single goal, convincing the world that the original people of the soil simply do not exist. They have every story in the world about the false history. And then you ask for ship manifest and evidence of ships, and then suddenly they can't produce them. But they could show you evidence of the Titanic hundreds of feet under the ocean. They won't even show you the entirety of the Titanic under the water. Only a corner of this ship. They still parse that history. They have reclassified the true indigenous people, renamed you, and redrawn maps around you, hoping you would forget the land your spirit is made from. Now they deploy their little native influencers online, armed with fraudulent petitions and digital picket signs, begging platforms to remove you from your own story. They're performing a pathetic pantomime of indigeneity. If you are indigenous, why would you need outside help? What are they protecting? If you're truly indigenous Native Americans, how could someone take that from you? Why the sudden panic? Every post they make, every petition they circulate is an admission. You've been caught, and now history will be made. Every other race are the visitors. It is time, Black Americans. Time for you to start acting like the host in your home, because all of this is yours. It is time you start acting like the host.
When Europeans first arrived in places like Virginia, the Carolinas, and Georgia, they noticed something they couldn't explain, and something they later tried to hide. The dark-skinned people they wanted to label as Negro, mulatto, or colored, they already spoke native languages fluently. Algonquian, Powhatan, Arawak, even regional trade dialects. So tell me, how does someone fresh off a ship suddenly speak the exact indigenous tongue of the land that they supposedly just arrived in. They don't. That doesn't make sense. Because these were not outsiders. They were the original people of the land, American Indians.
From the very beginning, black Americans have been a vital part of the American story, helping to make this the greatest nation in the history of the world.
Let's continue to correct the propaganda and the attempt at erasing the truth. Black Americans are not the descendants of the Indians in the history books. They are the Indians. The proof has been buried, but it's not gone. When Christopher Columbus washed up on these shores, lost and delirious, who did he write that he found? He called them Indios. He mapped a land he labeled India Superior, a territory that included Florida. He wasn't hallucinating an empty land. He was documenting people who were already there. These images can be found in Gran Canaria, Spain, at the Columbus Museum, Casa de Colón. And who were those people? They weren't the pale-skinned Siberians who crossed a land bridge, that's for sure. The historical records, the artwork from the era, the very descriptions, they detail people with dark skin, with hair textures that Europeans had never seen. They describe the original people as dark-skinned and woolly haired, the true owners of the soil. The people that Columbus met were Black Americans, the West Indians of the Caribbean, the Indians of the North and South American coasts. All of these territories were Black civilizations. Native Americans are the erasure. They are the last part of the destiny swap, a foreign invasive group from Siberia, and was grafted onto the identity of the people who were already here, while the original people were systematically reclassified, enslaved, and renamed to sever their claim to the land. The Indian Removal Act was a removal of Black indigenous nations. The face on the old nickel, the buffalo nickel, that proud profile was a Black indigenous man, an American Indian. Every time someone speaks about Native American history while pointing to a group that arrived later, they are perpetuating the final stage of the conquest, the theft of the victim's identity. They replace the people and the story. Black Americans are not a people without a land. They are the land. They are India Superior. They are the Indians that Columbus couldn't miss, and that every power since has tried to make you unsee. The map doesn't lie. The history books do.
But I feel like because you guys have gone through so much, there's like an enlightenment to you. I always feel such a drawl and just so seen in a way that I don't feel as much with white people, I would say. So, I mean, I will just say that I feel like you guys are magnets, and I hope that your voice gets heard more, because I think that there has been a lot of trauma of just invisibility and your way of rising through it and still being survivors and stuff. I don't know, I've always felt like it's been super special, and I'm so thankful for the relationships that I've had.
Oh, shit, not the bridge being built. Not the bridge!
I will never forget, let me just say, when I was younger, I will never forget looking over as a young kid and seeing a Black man get out of a Mercedes, and something, I was like, that's success. And there was just always that vision. And I know it doesn't have to be like a superficial symbol, but there was just something implanted in me as a young kid. And I had a buzzed head when I was young, and I felt like I think I've allowed myself to see that, like, having shorter hair as a female, like, I haven't seen myself a lot.
But you're more American than anyone. But you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Yeah. Actually, your entire identity is American-based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American, I'm German American, I'm Italian American, I'm Jewish American, I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever.
We are to live in a society that is supposed to be anti-racist, meaning something that we create that benefits all people, not someone more than others. Then we should know about people who've been fighting for years and years and years. We should know about Reverend Bruce Clunder, who was a white guy who was protesting school segregation in Ohio, and Ohio is considered the North. He laid his body down in front of a bulldozer in the 1960s to protest school segregation and died. We should probably know about Ann McCarty Braden, who organized with Rosa Parks, and she helped organize white Southerners to join the civil rights movement and to go against redlining, which was systemic ghettoization. She bought a house in her name for a black couple who could not buy a home in the neighborhood they wanted to go to. It's a lot of people. Reverend James Reeb, who marched with Dr. King. We don't often talk about John Brown, is probably the most infamous one. But even beyond him, there are so many other folks, even during the period of enslavement. What that means is we can never say they were a product of their time. Not necessarily. They were a product of peer pressure. Think about it that way. Because we know deep down inside when something is right or wrong. General Lee in the Confederate Army, he has a descendant, Robert E. Lee. He has a descendant right now who's a pastor, white guy, who's anti-racist. Was that an easy thing to do? No, because he got kicked out of his church congregation because of that. But it was a bold thing to do. So when we talk about miseducation, it ain't just like, dang, black people, y'all ain't learning your history. White folks, y'all not learning your history.
Most of us learned a distorted history of slavery in school. So as white Americans, most of us don't realize our connection to it. Here's a quick rundown of historical facts I had not been taught. That the North was deeply implicated, that slavery was legal in northern states for over 200 years, that Northerners up and down the economic spectrum made their livings in businesses tied to slave trade and slavery, that Northern mills processed cotton harvested by enslaved people. The Midwest and the West were implicated. They grew food to feed the South, where land was devoted to cash crops like cotton, harvested by the enslaved. Consumers throughout the country were implicated in their everyday purchases of clothing, coffee, sugar, rice, tobacco. People who immigrated from Europe after slavery were implicated. I have Irish, French, and German immigrant ancestors who came to the United States in the 19th century, worked in factories, struggled, but they were given access to the American dream. Why were waves of immigrants flocking here? Because it was the land of opportunity. Why was the economy booming? Why were there jobs? Because it had been built largely on unpaid labor.
The black community has long suffered under the weight of systemic racism and discrimination. As white people, it is our responsibility to use our privilege to support and uplift the black community. Here are a few ways that we can be better allies. Listen and learn. We need to listen to black voices and experiences without interrupting or dismissing them. We should educate ourselves on the history of systemic racism and the ways that it continues to impact the black community today. We should seek out resources, books, and documentaries that help us understand the issues. Next, speak up. We should use our privilege to speak up against racism and discrimination. We should challenge racist comments and behaviors, even if it's uncomfortable. Silence that which perpetuates racism. We should support black-owned businesses in our communities. We should advocate for policies that support economic justice and equity. Donate to black-led organizations. Financially support black-led organizations that are working to address systemic racism and inequality. It can be done through regular contributions or contributing to certain campaigns and initiatives. We should also use our platforms for good as white people. We have access to platforms and audiences that the black community may not have. We should use our platforms to amplify black voices and perspectives, raise awareness about issues affecting the black community, and promote positive change. Be open to feedback and learning from our mistakes, as we will make mistakes along the way. But it's important to acknowledge them, apologize, and learn from them. We should be open to feedback and willing to change our behavior and perspectives as we continue to learn and grow. Being a better ally to the black community requires a willingness to listen, learn, and take action. It requires us to use our privilege for good, support black-owned businesses and communities, and speak up against racism and discrimination. It's up to all of us to work towards a more just and equitable society, and being a better ally is an important step. If you like the content and benefit from it, give me a follow.
The problem that we have in white America is that most white people, when they hear about white racism, most white people say, Man, that's not me. I never discriminated against anybody. Never did. In their sense of what discrimination means or what racism is, they may be right. But they sit residing in a system from which they take full benefit, a system that defines them in and defines black people out. We are going to have to face the fact that we are not a community. A community is where a lot of people develop mutually beneficial relationships with each other. And our racist institutions and the political boundaries of our cities define black people out of the community. White people will sit in their suburban homes and watch their television programs and hear about all of these laws that are being passed. Many of them are beginning to wonder, well, what is it with those colored people on there? Why are they so upset? All this wonderful stuff that we're doing for them. But we aren't focusing on the black man living on the block. He lives in a two-flat on that block. And he knows what the circumstance on that block was 10 years ago. And he knows what it is today. And he, too, has heard about all of those programs and laws being passed. But the hard fact of the matter is that things are not changing for you. It's no wonder that the white population and the black population are pitted against each other when the black man knows that the change is not coming and the white man thinks that major efforts are being undertaken when they are not. So I don't think anybody should be surprised when one sees the black people in an open attack on the system, because I suspect that they don't see that there is any other realistic alternative.
Here's a secret about black America that most white Americans don't know. I could get in a lot of trouble for even letting this secret out into the public. And if it can work for me, it can work for anybody. And why is this big goofy white dude so excited when he talks about black America and racism? Listen, this is all I had to do. I just had to fix the huge flaw in my character, knock on the front door of black America and say, hey, I'm sorry I'm late to the fight. I'm here. Would you please help me lace up my gloves? Because we got some shit to do. And that was a huge gamble on my part because I didn't know how well I'd be received, right? I'm literally a turd in the punch bowl. But because I came with love in my heart, I came with sincerity, and I came with education, not from a place of ignorance anymore. They welcomed me with open arms. They were my family that I didn't know I had. They always had love in their heart for me. I just had to come knock on the door. And see, my flawed character way of thinking created this big divide, this chasm that was a fiction of my imagination. And when I started to live in reality, a bridge magically appeared over this gap that I created. And in doing so, it changed my life. It changed my path in life. It filled my heart with empathy and love. Like I've got a winning lottery ticket in life because black America healed my racist heart, and I stand on that.
You know what stood out to me watching all of these clips? It is not what these white Americans are saying. It is the fact that for a lot of black Americans, this is something that they don't hear often enough. Because let's be honest, black Americans have been carrying their history for generations. From slavery to segregation to systemic barriers that still exist today. This is not something new. This is lived experience. This is family history. This is something that has been passed down, not just in books, but through pain and real survival. So when you see people outside of that experience, especially white Americans, acknowledging it, understanding it, and speaking on it, it hits different, especially to black American community. Not because it makes it more true, but because it shows that the truth is finally being recognized beyond the borders of black American community. And that is what makes these clips powerful. But again, this does not mean that black Americans have ever asked for validation to prove their own history. The evidence is there. The impact is visible. The disparities didn't come from nowhere. So those white Americans who act like they don't even know the history of black Americans, it's not because they didn't see the impact. It's not because they didn't see the evidences. It's because they are trying to ignore it. So what we are hearing from these white Americans is not the discovery of something new. It is the acknowledgement of something that has always been there. We have seen many videos of other white people trying to downplay these realities. You sometimes hear things like everyone has the same opportunities in America, or the past is the past, without deeply understanding how the past shapes the present. Black Americans' ancestors who were affected by Jim Crow, by segregation, by redlining, this is still affecting the current Black American families. People should understand that the system does not disappear overnight. Effects does not vanish because time has passed. So seeing these white Americans acknowledging what happened in the past, acknowledging the real identities of Black Americans, acknowledging that there is no equality in America, it is not just a support, it is a shift in awareness. These clips feel emotional, they feel powerful, and they feel special to many Black Americans because it is not something that they are used to hear. But in reality, understanding history, showing empathy should not be rare. It should be normal. And to my Black American viewers, I want to say this clearly. Don't let moments like this makes you feel like your history is only valid when others agree with it. Your history, your lineage, it is valid even if white Americans are not agreeing with it. You should know that. Because sometimes without even realizing it, that message can come across like, finally, someone is seeing us. And yes, that feeling is real. But at the same time, you have to remember, you have always seen yourselves. Your communities have always known this. Your families have always lived this. So this is not the beginning of recognition. It is just more people catching up to what has always been understood. And I also want to give credit to where it is due. It is not always easy for people to step out of what they have been taught or what people around them believe and say something like that, especially on a topic like race in America. Some of these individuals in those clips have probably faced backlash. Some might even lose relationships over speaking like this, and they still chose to speak. Respect to them. This shows that there are people willing to listen, to learn, and to unlearn. People willing to stand on something, even if it is uncomfortable. But again, the focus should always come back to the core of this conversation. And this is the experience of Black Americans. Because at the end of the day, it's not about who is finally speaking up. It is about what has always been true. Black Americans are not just a part of American history. They are foundational to American history. From the beginning, they dominated the culture, the music, the influence, the labor, the identity of the country. So much of all of that is rooted from the contributions of Black Americans. What we are seeing now is people starting to recognize it more. But recognition is just the beginning. Understanding is one thing, but what comes after understanding is what matters more. Because history is not just something to acknowledge, it is something to learn from. And hopefully, as more people, more white Americans begin to understand this, it won't feel real anymore. It will just be what it should have always been, the truth. So that was it for today. I want you to drop down in the comment section your thoughts, your opinions, your reactions, your ideas, and then we learn from each other. See you next time.